how can we maintain our joy in the ministry despite difficult territory or personal challenges? Please listen as Brother Robert Raines presents the talk, Be Filled with Joy in Your Ministry. Thank you, Brother Numair, for helping us to avoid distraction as this system nears its end. The time has arrived for the baptism talk. We invite all baptism candidates to pay particular attention. The baptism talk, entitled How Your Baptism Leads to More Happiness, will help all of us to draw closer to Jehovah. Let us now listen to Brother Jonathan Smith as he presents the talk.
Rivers that never stop flowing, soil that never stops producing, a sun that never stops warming, clouds that are ever changing in formation. Jehovah God has filled our earth, the atmosphere, the sun, the stars. He has formed them so that they never stop giving. Why so? Because Jehovah is the greatest giver. And as such, we can be very assured of one thing. He is also the happiest person in the universe. Now, how can we say that? Well, the answer is based on what Jesus said, a fundamental truth. There is more happiness in giving than in receiving. And there is no one who does more giving than Jehovah. Now, being made in God's image, we too are made to be givers. We find our greatest happiness in doing so, just as Jehovah does. But there is one kind of giving that is more valuable than any other. What is that? Well, please turn in your Bibles with me to Revelation chapter 4 and verse 11. Revelation 4 and verse 11. You are worthy, Jehovah our God, to receive the glory and the honor and the power, because you created all things, and because of your will, they came into existence and were created. Did you notice what we can give to Jehovah? In verse 11, he's worthy of us giving him glory, honor, and power. Actually, those three things are related because it requires the last one to accomplish the first two. In other words, to give Jehovah glory and honor, it means that we have to use a little bit of power or energy or effort. But when we give Jehovah glory and the honor that he deserves, we find great satisfaction because there is no one more deserving than our Creator. Now, you, baptismal candidates, are honoring Jehovah by what you have decided to do today. Today, you are making public what you have already done in private. You have decided to give Jehovah everything. That's right, everything. You've decided to give him your very life. How do we know that? Because before you could come here today and present yourself for baptism, you first had to make a dedication to Jehovah. What is that? A dedication is not just a decision. A dedication is a solemn promise. In other words, you went to Jehovah in private prayer and you told him, Jehovah, from now on, my life is yours. If ever there is a conflict between what I want and what you want, you will win every time. That's a dedication. You told that to Jehovah before this occasion today. So following this talk, you will be asked, have you dedicated your life to Jehovah? And if you have done so, you can happily say yes. Now, think how Jehovah must feel when he sees that you have done that. You have made a decision to give him your life, your time, your energy, your devotion. Yes, give him the honor and glory that he deserves for an eternity. Imagine a little child giving a beautiful flower to a parent. It isn't much, but the parent treasures that little flower. Jehovah treasures your gift to him. Now, because of this incredible act of generosity that you have done, given your life to Jehovah, we too share that joy that Jehovah shares. And for that reason, we welcome you here today, to this occasion, to this talk. Now, your baptism will open up opportunities to give in ways that have not yet been possible for you. Your baptism brings you into a special relationship with Jehovah, a dedicated relationship with Jehovah. And in that dedication, you will be able to accomplish more for Jehovah than ever before. And your giving will be valuable. Now, today, people give to many causes for many things. People give humanitarian assistance. Maybe they give money, their time, in supporting social causes or other causes. But in reality, when you give to Jehovah, there is no greater, more lofty, more noble cause. You're giving to the best cause ever. Now, by getting baptized, you also become one of Jehovah's witnesses. This means that you are now qualified to represent Jehovah in your ministry. You're qualified to carry his name, to testify about him to all humankind. So now, in addition to that, you are going to become part of a global family of worshipers who are likewise serving Jehovah, who likewise want to give him glory and honor and power. Usually when people give, they start off by giving to their family members. They give their family members love and affection and positive thoughts and commendation. Well, guess what? At the moment, your spiritual family numbers over 8.5 million people. Your family just got very large. Your spiritual family. And there will be many ways that you can give to your brothers and sisters. So now, the happiness that you feel in giving, whether it be to Jehovah directly or whether it be to your spiritual family, that happiness is virtually unlimited. Because unlike the world where they may measure giving according to how much a person gives, it isn't that way with Jehovah. With Jehovah, no matter what you give, he treasures. Because he's not looking at the amount. He's looking at your heart. He's looking at your motive, the love you have for him. I remember some years ago, I was walking down the corridor of a large hospital, and in this one wing of the hospital, there was a lot of plaques on the wall, and I wondered what they were because they got progressively larger as I went up the wall. The bottom of the wall that had people's names with an amount that they had donated to the hospital. The very bottom, $1,000, a little further up, $10,000. Really near the top, the plaques got bigger, $1 million. That's the world. That's not Jehovah. Jehovah treasures every gift that you give to him. So today, we are going to look at two ways in particular that you can give to Jehovah. Number one, your Christian ministry, and number two, to your spiritual family. And remember this as we go through this information. Jehovah will never take for granted what you give to him. He will always reward you. So what about making disciples? Jesus gave us this command in Matthew chapter 28. Why? Because it is one of the foremost ways that we can honor and glorify Jehovah, by enlarging his spiritual family, our spiritual family. It's one of the ways that we make Jehovah known. We help people get on the path to life. Making disciples is the most important work that a person can do today. So what's involved in that? Well, as we learned, honor and glory require power. So making disciples requires a little bit of effort on our part. What's involved? Jesus said, "Go therefore and make disciples." So when a person goes, they put forth some energy, some effort. It takes effort to go in the house-to-house ministry, or make return visits, or conduct Bible studies, or pick up the telephone and call someone and give them a witness, write them a letter. All of this takes a little bit of effort. Maybe you'll have to give up a little time that you formerly spent on yourself. Maybe you won't see results at first. You'll have to keep at it with a little bit more effort. But when you preach, you are sharing with Jehovah's work. And we become his fellow worker. Now, as a result, you're going to receive another blessing. Let's take a look at Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 24 and see what that is. Proverbs chapter 11 and verse 24. It says, "One gives generously and ends up with more. Another withholds what should be given, but he comes to poverty." How is that? It sounds like almost the opposite of what we would expect. You give generously, but you end up with more? Well, remember, when the Bible makes an expression like this, it's not simply talking about money. Jehovah God recognizes that there are many ways to give. Time, energy, effort, and so forth. Not all of them involve monetary gifts. For example, when you give generously of yourself in the ministry, what can you get back? Well, your faith will become stronger because you are talking to others about your hope. Your hope becomes stronger. Your spirituality becomes stronger. Your relationship with Jehovah gets stronger. So no matter how much you give in the ministry, you just keep getting back. Blessing after blessing after blessing, as it says here in verse 24. You end up with more than what you had. Sometimes, though, giving does take a little bit of planning. It takes a little bit of forethought. For example, it would be good if, as a new baptismal candidate, you decided that you would like to get out of the ministry at least weekly, on a weekly basis. Well, that's going to take a little planning, a little scheduling, making sure that you have maybe a partner to work with and somewhere to go and something to do in the ministry. A good schedule. As you get more and more adept at going in the ministry, perhaps you'd like to set additional goals for yourself, maybe auxiliary pioneering, regular pioneering possibly. All the while, you're going to keep finding that you're giving more, but you're receiving more in the way of blessings from Jehovah. Now, remember this too. Many of us feel somewhat inadequate in the ministry, like we never really have quite mastered this. But the ministry is like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get. The more you work at what you're doing, the more skillful you become. The more skillful you become, the more you will enjoy the ministry. So make it your goal to improve your skill at starting conversations. Make it your goal to use the teaching toolbox that we have been provided as Jehovah's people. Make it your goal to become a really good witness of Jehovah. But what if we are somewhat shy by nature? Can you still find joy? Can you still become skillful in the ministry? Well, for the past 50 years or so, Brother David Neal has zealously engaged in virtually every aspect of the ministry, including street witnessing, phone witnessing, business territory, letter writing. And yet, like many of us, Brother Neal has found it a little difficult because he's naturally shy. Well, let's talk to Brother Neil today and find out how he has been able to live up to his dedication vow to Jehovah. Brother Neil, tell us a little bit, first of all, what helped you to share more fully in the ministry.
Well, first being laid off from my full-time job. At the time, I was, as mentioned, a shy, timid, 19-year-old unbaptized publisher living in Central Ohio. Up to that point, my participation in the ministry was minimal and somewhat of a struggle for me. There was a pioneer brother about my age in the congregation, and when I told him I was now unemployed, he encouraged me to join him and the other pioneers in the ministry since I had time on my hands. I took him up on the invitation, and as a result, I quickly gained more confidence speaking to people. Not long after this, I was baptized and later joined them in the pioneer work. Within a month after my baptism, I had the privilege of conducting a Bible study with two fleshly brothers who eventually got baptized.
Outstanding. Well, I understand that your pioneering then led to Bethel service, and now suddenly you find yourself witnessing in New York City. A challenge, right?
Yes. I was assigned to a congregation on the west side of Manhattan. Tall buildings, traffic, crowds, noise, subways, it was all very intimidating. But after a while, I did what had helped me back in Ohio. I started working with the local pioneers on the weekends. Now, they were a group of older sisters who were utterly fearless in the ministry, and they helped me learn how to navigate all the unique aspects of field service in a big city. In time, I no longer felt so intimidated. And I would also like to mention something else that's been a big help to me. Since my early days in New York City, I've had the practice of saying a silent prayer at every door so that I could have the courage to speak to whoever was on the other side.
Wonderful. Good partners and prayer. Good combination. So how has sharing more fully in the ministry led to your being a happier person?
Well, over the years, I've learned that I'm happiest when I'm out in service with my friends. Of course, seeing good results is also a source of happiness. I remember one couple that a brother and I met while doing street work. The wife immediately showed interest in the Bible, and after some discussion, she said this was what she had been looking for her whole life. Now, although I didn't personally study with the family, they spoke another language, I was happy to hear later that she and all her children eventually came into the truth. So the ministry has provided me an opportunity to really help people, to have good association with my brothers and sisters, and most of all, to honor Jehovah. There's nothing like it.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing that, Brother Neil. We appreciate your experience. Well, in addition to joy that we get in the ministry, as you no doubt have already begun experiencing as an unbaptized publisher, what about the joy we receive from giving to our spiritual family? Well, why not make it a habit of taking notice of how your spiritual family might need assistance? For example, are there some in your congregation that may need assistance in running errands? Can you go to the grocery store for them, or perhaps give them a ride if they have to get to a doctor's appointment? Can you show personal interest in other ways? Do they need a meal? Would they benefit from some help cleaning the house or home repairs? Those efforts are treasured by Jehovah as if you were giving to him. They will give you joy supporting others in what you do. In fact, if you think a little bit about many of our original songs, our music videos, as you look at your brothers and sisters in those videos, there's a good chance that they're smiling because they're giving, either giving in the ministry or giving to their spiritual family, maybe showing hospitality to someone or encouraging someone. They're giving their power to honor Jehovah by caring for his people. Another way that you could give would be to support your pioneers, maybe working with them in the ministry so that they can have association and not be by themselves on a long day. Or perhaps you can work with others early in the morning or late in the evening when their schedule permits. What about new ones in the congregation? Could it be that you might be able to make them feel at home, to make them feel like they're part of your spiritual family, in your congregation? Perhaps the elderly would appreciate someone just to come and visit and listen to them and talk with them at times. Or there may be those who are sick in the congregation who need assistance as well. Well, someone who is fondly known for doing all of that is with us today. Her name is Sister Becky Benitez. Sister Benitez, we'd like you to tell us a little bit, please, what motivates you to support others in the ministry as you have?
When I was growing up, my parents were raising 6 children on a farm, and they always encouraged us to be zealous in the ministry and to pioneer. But before we were old enough to drive, a dear sister so lovingly came by during the week to pick us up to help us so we could pioneer. Later on, when I was the only regular pioneer in the congregation, many of the sisters adjusted their schedules so that they could help me in the afternoons and I wasn't working alone. So their willingness to help me reach my field service goals motivates me to help others.
Outstanding. What about new ones? I understand that you have helped others that are maybe new to the congregation to make them feel at home.
When my husband and I went to Bethel, we moved from a very small congregation to a very large one, and I felt lost, like that new kid at school feeling. We didn't know anyone. We didn't have any Bible studies. But Jehovah answered our prayers by providing a family who made us feel at home. They often had us over for dinner. They worked with us in the ministry. So the love they showed us impelled us to do the same for new ones in our congregation.
Oh, that's beautiful. Appreciate that. What about the older ones in the congregation? We know that sometimes they have very specific needs. I understand that you've even had the opportunity to spend the night with them, even overnight in the hospital at times. With a Bethel schedule, that can't be easy. But why do you do it?
My Grandpa Jack and my Aunt Myra were both housebound when I was growing up, but despite a busy schedule, we were trained to always look after the older ones. So we visited them every day so they felt loved and never left out. Knowing how that affected them has motivated me to give special attention to the older ones in our congregation.
Beautiful.
Even though it means sacrificing some of our time, knowing that we're helping someone else reach their field service goals makes us happy. And by going out early in the morning, we've been able to start 2 new Bible studies. But also, when we help the older ones, we get to know their non-witness children. And as a result, we've been able to start 5 Bible studies with their family members. All of them have been to the Kingdom Hall, and one of them just recently became a publisher. So giving to Jehovah in these ways brings blessings that make any sacrifice worth it.
I could.
Even though it means sacrificing some of our time, knowing that we're helping someone else reach their field service goals makes us happy. And by going out early in the morning, we've been able to start 2 new Bible studies. But also, when we help the older ones, we get to know their non-witness children. And as a result, we've been able to start 5 Bible studies with their family members. All of them have been to the Kingdom Hall, and one of them just recently became a publisher. So giving to Jehovah in these ways brings blessings that make any sacrifice worth it.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. There is another fringe benefit, if you will, to giving to your brothers and sisters in the congregation. And that is, as Sister Benitez alluded to, it strengthens the bonds of friendship. Back in the 1st century, when our brothers and sisters were in need, the Apostle Paul mentions Macedonians, they begged for the privilege of giving. It makes us feel closer when there's giving in the congregation. Have you ever felt this way? Maybe somebody gave you something that you really needed or really appreciated. Did it make you feel closer to that person? Or maybe you gave them something that they deeply appreciated. You can bet they felt closer to you. Giving not just makes us happy, but it strengthens the bonds of our brotherhood. Remember, too, that giving isn't just about giving material things. It can be, just as that child gives his parents a flower, it can be something simple, a word of commendation at the right time. a meal, perhaps a drawing that you yourself have made for someone else. The beautiful thing about this is that when we give to others, in a sense, we're also giving to Jehovah. How is that so? Well, let's turn to, again, a scripture in Proverbs chapter 19, and this time verse 17. Proverbs 19 and verse 17. It says, "The one showing favor to the lowly is lending to Jehovah, and he will repay him for what he does." Now, I don't know if you have ever lent something to someone else before, but if you have, you may have experienced this. You didn't get it back. Or maybe you lent it to them and you got it back a long, long time after you thought you might. But you notice when we lend to Jehovah, it doesn't say he might repay in verse 17. He will repay. So, there's no one more reliable to lend to than Jehovah. And it says there in verse 17, when we show favor to the lowly ones, that means Jehovah will find a way to repay us. And sometimes it's when you least expect it. And sometimes when Jehovah repays you, it's exactly what you need at that moment. In fact, it will be personal, because nobody knows you better. Jehovah knows how to give exactly what we need at exactly the right time. So, for as long as you remain in Jehovah's family of worshipers, Jehovah will never stop giving to you. Today, you feel happy, and logically so, because you are giving your life to Jehovah, and you're taking a public stand in that regard. Many, many years ago, in fact, nearly 3,000 years ago, someone actually prayed for you, for me, for all of God's people, that we would be generous. That's right. Who was that? It was none other than King David, when he brought a tremendous treasure for the building of Jehovah's temple in Jerusalem. And many people were inspired by David's generosity, and they too wanted to give. And on that occasion, David prayed for us. Really. It's found in 1 Chronicles 29 and verses 17 and 18. 1 Chronicles 29 and verses 17 and 18. And notice what he says here. "I well know, O my God, that you examine the heart, and that you take pleasure in integrity. In the uprightness of my heart, I have voluntarily offered all these things, and I am overjoyed to see your people who are present here make voluntary offerings to you. O Jehovah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, our forefathers, keep these inclinations, these generous inclinations and thoughts in the hearts of your people forever, and direct their hearts to you." Did you notice? David prayed for us. That's right. All of Jehovah's people, down through the ages of time, that we would have generous inclinations and thoughts in our hearts. Well, with a prayer like that, doesn't it make you want to live up to that beautiful prayer? Cultivate the habit of giving, the giving spirit. And remember, it isn't how much you give. Even a silent prayer where you direct your thoughts to Jehovah for a few moments is a gift. You gave a little bit of your power to honor and glorify Jehovah. By giving to Jehovah, you will always be happy, you will always be rewarded, and you will always be satisfied knowing that you are giving to the most worthy person in the universe.
Thank you, Brother Smith. This year, the circumstances for baptism will vary. Your elders have made suitable provisions, in accord with local circumstances, for candidates to be baptized at the conclusion of this session. As soon as we finish singing song number 51, baptism candidates in your congregation will have an opportunity to make a public declaration of their faith by answering the 2 questions posed by a local elder, after which he will offer the prayer. Please be assured that the brothers at the branch office look forward to receiving your reports about these baptisms from the circuit overseers. And now, let us stand and sing together song number 51, To God We Are Dedicated.